Shemansky, and the topic I chose to talk about is Lou Gehrigs' Luckiest Man on Earth speech. This is my audience. I have two brothers, my dad, and my mom's video. Some reasons why I chose this speech is because I had some background information. I knew some background information on Lou Gehrig. I knew he was like a legendary baseball player, and I was eager to learn more about him. And I also wanted to learn a lot more about his legendary speech. I'm also a big baseball fan, and I thought it would be easy to talk about. Throughout my speech, you're going to hear me talk about some background information on Lou, everything from his early days to his baseball career and so forth. I'm also going to talk about some reasons behind why he gave his speech. In addition to the content in the speech, I'm going to really break down the speech a lot. Also going to talk about the audience reactions and the legacy of Lou Gehrig, and also the legacy of the speech. First, I want to talk about Lou's early days. Henry Louis Gehrig was born on June 19, 1903 in Manhattan, New York. He was sadly the only living child out of 4 babies. He's rumored to weigh a total of 14 pounds, which is huge for a newborn baby. He was the son of 4 German immigrants. Gehrig attended Commerce High School, where he excelled in football and baseball. And after that, he attended the prestigious Columbia University. His tenure in college was cut short when he signed a contract with the New York Yankees in 1923. He arrived to the MLB in 1925 after working his way up through the minors. He played in 2,130 consecutive games, which was a long-standing record until Cal Ripken Jr. broke it recently. And this is also how he earned the nickname the Iron Horse. He played 14 seasons, all with the Yankees, where he won 6 World Series. He also hit 493 home runs, batted .340, and hit in 1,995 runs. Despite his great accomplishments, Gehrig did not get the press he deserved. Also, he really wasn't that highly respected. Instead, he lived in the shadows of Babe Ruth, who was a big partier and had a big personality, while Gehrig was more laid back, quiet, and shy. This also continued when Joe DiMaggio joined the Yanks in 1936. A major turning point in Lou's career came in 1938, where he lacked his usual strength and his great stats. He took himself out of the lineup in 1939 and ended up going to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. It is there where he learned that he was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and it was there where he also got the news that he would never have the chance to play baseball again. Next, I want to give you guys some background information on amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It's also known as ALS, and it affects parts of the nervous system that control voluntary muscle movement, and the muscles begin to become weak and eventually non-functional. And at the time, they did not have a cure for this disease, so it was pretty fatal. A couple of weeks after his diagnosis, New York Yankees decided to honor Lou Gehrig in between the doubleheader with the Washington Senators. The date being July 4th, 1939, in legendary Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, New York. There was around 62,000 people in attendance, and on this gorgeous sunny day, and they had a ceremony for him leading up before he spoke, and they also gave him a lot of presents and they gave him a lot of praise. When it was his turn to speak, he was initially too moved to speak, but after encouragement from the fans and a nudge from his manager, he eventually got up to the podium and addressed his fans and teammates. Here are some reasons behind his speech. He was a dying man, and it was likely that he would die in the next couple of years. Also, it was his retirement speech, and he wanted to go out on the right way and give a proper goodbye to the game he loved. He additionally wanted to thank his fans and teammates for their support and encouragement throughout the years. Finally, he wanted people not to feel sorry for him, even though he had a very severe illness. Next, I want to talk about the content of his famous speech. The speech was very concise, and it was only 277 words, but it was very to the point, and there was no fluff, and he spoke truly from the heart. That's what made his speech very powerful and inspirational. Lou Gehrigs spoke with a thankful tone, and an example of this from his speech is, right from his speech, it's, "Look at these grand men. Which of you would consider it a highlight of his career just to associate with them for even one day? Sure, I'm lucky." And another example is, "I've been in ballparks for 17 years and I've never received anything but kindness and encouragement from you fans." The most famous line, I would say, was when he first addressed the fans in his first line of his speech, and it reads, "Fans, for the past 2 weeks you've been hearing about the bad break I got, yet I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth." This is a hyperbole, and it's also ironic. This is an example of irony because he is suffering from a terminal illness, yet he considers himself the luckiest man on the earth. Now I'm going to share with you an example of a literary device. This literary device is parallel structure. When he repeats the word "when" and "that's something," it really helps him display his message, and in addition, it helps establish a rhythm in his speech. And here's the example of parallel structure. The New York Giants, a team that you would give your right arm to beat, and vice versa, sends you a gift. That's something. When everyone, down to the groundskeepers and those boys, the boys in white coats, remember you with trophies, that's something. In this speech, there was also a couple of rhetorical questions, and the example is, who wouldn't consider it an honor to have known Jacob Ruppert, also the builder of baseball's greatest empire, Ed Barrow, to have spent 6 years with that wonderful little fella, Miller Huggins, then to have spent the next 9 years with that outstanding leader, the smart student of psychology, the best manager in baseball today, Joe McCarthy. He uses rhetorical questions not for the purpose that the audience answers his questions, but he wants the audience, his questions to make he uses these rhetorical questions to make a point that he's very thankful to have met these fine men. Gehrigs' speech finishes with a very strong ending, and the ending is, "So I close in saying that I may have had a tough break, but I have an awful lot to live for. Thank you." In the last sentence, he stated a misfortune, comparing his illness to a tough break. But when he refers to it as a tough break, it's minimizing the severity, considering it's a disease that's going to kill him eventually. The main message I got from this speech is to be optimistic. We shouldn't think about ourselves and whatever troubles we might have. Instead, we should think of all the good fortunes we have to live for. And an example of this is when he says, "I've got an awful lot to live for." The audience reacted in a couple of different ways before and after Lou Gehrigs' speech. Before, he was greeted with a very long and loud roar, and at the end of the speech, everyone was very moved, and pretty much everyone had a tear in their eye. The audience expected Gehrigs to go up there and complain. He was given with a very bad illness and was likely to die, and they thought he was going to go up and have self-pity for himself. But instead, he taught people to look at the bright side of things, and it really changed them. Lou Gehrig left a legacy on the sport of baseball. He was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1939. His number 4 Yankees jersey was retired. He also had 1,995 RBIs, which is 5th all time. He was a 2-time MVP, a 7-time All-Star, and won the Triple Crown in 1934, which is one in 13 people to ever win the Triple Crown, which is pretty impressive. Lou Gehrig passed away in 1941, and ever since, people started referring to ALS as Lou Gehrig's disease. Lou serves as a role model for people with ALS to keep fighting and never give up. The luckiest man on earth speech has also left a very great legacy. 7 years later, on June 27, 2009, the speech was played across all 15 games on that Saturday in the 7th inning stretch. It was paying. This was paying tribute to Lou and also raising money for ALS.